When faced with their darkest moments, some users turn to Reddit. Maybe they're looking for encouragement or someone to listen to their story before they abruptly end it. Unfortunately, far too many who tell their stories are never heard from again. Take the Redditor altruisticcat4759 for example. He joined Reddit in 2021, mostly lurking through the comments and only ever speaking up when he felt it necessary. Most of the time, it was to defend people he seemed to value or share opinions with. There wasn't any indication that something was wrong. After a bit of activity, he went silent. For 2 years he lurked, no posts, no comments, nothing. Then out of nowhere, he suddenly made his presence known, this time on the subreddit r/sex. He bemoaned the fact that after what would soon be 26 years of his life, he had yet to lose his virginity. Of course, a few Redditors were quick with their suggestions, some offering odder solutions than others. And while altruisticcat4759 was thankful, none seemed to be the answer he wanted. He turned down a few and asked questions about others. However, one of his responses stood out quite starkly amongst the rest. While talking about where he might meet a girl, he typed the following, quote, "A part of me feels like finding a woman who likes me will be impossible." It's a feeling that many men deal with, and it would be one that would have a damaging effect on altruisticcat4759 a few months later. In January 2024, not 3 months after his previous post, he decided to make a post on r/Watch. Here he revealed that he felt like his entire life had gone wrong, that just nobody loved him, that no matter how much he contributed to society, it just wasn't enough. One Redditor told him he didn't owe society anything, but Altruistic Cat felt otherwise. He wanted to give back, to serve some sort of purpose. Unfortunately, this desperate need for purpose started to turn into resentment, specifically against women. On the 3rd of February that year, he decided to post an R off my chest. Here we start to learn a little bit more about who this guy actually is, both in the post and through the comments. He complained about his past relationships and unfulfilled dreams, feeling like his life was over with so much already unaccomplished. He then finished by saying he didn't believe anyone in his life cared about him. And while that told us how he felt about life, what was really telling was how he responded to a comment. Someone pointed out that there may be a reason behind people's responses to him, insinuating that there was more to the story, something he wasn't telling Reddit. Other Redditors seemed to agree, leading the comment to get more upvotes than the actual post. Altruistic Cap used this as proof that people must hate him, and this is when he turned to our depression. He seemed overly hurt by people's responses and wanted to know if they wanted him to think about end-of-life options. Those who read the post were understandably taken aback by this. One Redditor pointed out that no one knew who he was. It was odd that he reacted so viscerally to strangers responding to this post. Not only was it a complete overreaction, but it was a very telling sign of his mental state. If a few upvotes on a harmlessly curious comment could send him on a negative spiral, how would he respond to a more targeted attack, especially as his resentment towards women grew? His disappointment with life seemed to turn to anger. After the lack of response to his previous post, he returned to R off my chest, ready to continue complaining about his life. This time, however, his post drew a lot of attention, and probably not the kind of attention he wanted. In the post, he complained about women's impossible standards, and how society had just changed. He ended up earning people's wrath rather than their sympathy. Almost immediately, people attacked him for resenting young women, and for coming across like an incel. While he tried to defend his case and point out some of the commenters' hypocrisy, many weren't willing to hear him out. They'd read about how he felt about women, some saw how he was reacting with his comment history, and people didn't need to know anything else about him. The final straw for the Redditor seemed to hit in March. 3 days after revealing that he was planning to let an escort take his virginity, he would make one last post. And unfortunately, it would be the last post he ever made to Reddit. While he didn't give detailed reasoning behind what actually triggered his final post, he did reveal that he didn't think he'd ever make a difference in life. He didn't believe he'd ever achieve what he believed would bring his life purpose. He made 2 more posts that month, and then nothing. His account went radio silent. A few comments under his last post begged him not to do anything he'd regret, to live for himself, but there just was no response. And there's no way to know if he'd actually gone through with what he said he would. It was only in December of that same year that Reddit got an answer to his sudden disappearance. A user named DangerousJudge3078 took some time to write about the Redditor on the subreddit Dead Redditors. They revealed in the post that they'd been good online friends and that he'd gone radio silent days after his final post, and the only logical conclusion would have been that he followed through with his plan. That sudden silence can knock the air out of you. It's heartbreaking, and not just because of the sense of finality, but because pieces of that person's life have been left around the internet just to exist, leaving the story there in front of everyone, haunting all the people that could have done differently. Worse so, in many similar situations, there's just no way of knowing what really happened to the user. You must either accept a horrible reality or naively hope that they found happiness. The only thing worse than the haunting silence is live updates of it. On the 24th of August 2022, Reasonable Welcome 58 posted the phrase, "Tonight is the night." Anywhere else, that sentence might have actually seemed positive, a sign that good things were coming to him. But on this certain subreddit, it was a terrifying sentence, one that leaves you with a sense of foreboding in the pit of your stomach as you scramble to find a way to save someone on the other side of the world. Those who saw the post immediately started to try to reason with him, most latching on to the fact that he'd mentioned a girlfriend. Some asked questions about her, while others tried to persuade him to not do anything risky. It will crush her when she comes back, one Redditor commented. But unfortunately he made up his mind. And what made this even more disturbing was that he decided to keep people updated on his situation for as long as he could while he would leave the car engine on, all to have company during his final moments. People begged him to stop, using his girlfriend at home to lure him out of his car. Others tried sharing their own experiences, how they'd been in a similar headspace and came out of it, but unfortunately he didn't budge. People started to discover that he was trapped in a hole, surrounded by 40k in debt with no feasible way out. His life had become a repetitive motion of work, home and sleep, scrambling to pay these debts with no possible solution. Quote, "I've tried my whole life to be happy and it hasn't worked," he responded to one of the many people trying to get him to choose life. "There are instances where I feel happy, but it's fleeting. Most of my experiences get crushed by some sort of event that destroys my hope of ever being happy." As this continued, he would assure Redditors of the situation. "I'm already experiencing the effects and I have to sit up to concentrate on typing." About 25 minutes later, he told another user that he believed he only had an hour left or so. And still, the Redditors kept tabs on him. And miraculously, he actually survived. For a little while, the incident seemed to have a bittersweet ending. He didn't succumb to the fumes, and he managed to survive and get out. But unfortunately, not many people really know what happened after. His last post was titled, "If there was a button for me to unalive, I would push it." But while Ramods removed the posts, the comments were still up. And with them, his last words. "Therapy does nothing, problems will be there even after I talk to someone. It's just me repeating things to people over and over. My problems will always be there because I can't do anything about it." And unfortunately, Reddit has far too many examples of similar situations, and it's really just terrifying to see and utterly tragic. But this is just the tip of the iceberg of some of the worst things ever seen on Reddit, as some users like Aromatic Candle actually use the site to brag about attempted murder. But before we continue, I want to tell you about our video sponsor, Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one management software that offers entrepreneurs a range of applications to simplify the daily management of their business, including invoicing, accounting, project management, inventory, website creation, and so much more. Odoo tracks your growth and allows you to add additional apps as your business evolves and your needs change. The first app is free for life, including unlimited hosting and support. One of my personal favorites is their accounting app that's designed to make financial management as accessible as possible. It's really easy to set up. For example, if you need accounting for your business, it's super simple, as you can create an unlimited number of professional invoices instantly, whilst also tracking payments and automatically following up with all late payers, which really allows you to manage your accounting with just peace of mind, as Odoo makes invoices and expenses so simple to do, as you can manage your customer and supplier accounts easily in just a few clicks, all whilst avoiding any manual entry with AI that recognizes supplier invoice data. And to facilitate better tracking, you can also sync your bank accounts with over 28,000 banks worldwide for real-time tracking. With their intuitive dashboards, you can get an overview of your finances at just a glance, from seeing all your customer invoices, supplier invoices, and all your financial data in real time. All of this allows you to get very detailed reports and financial statements on your company's financial health, allowing you to make informed decisions. Odoo's accounting application is tailored to your local tax regulations, always to ensure that you comply with applicable laws. Odoo allows you to do all of this and manage your accounting for free with its first app offer, which is free for life and includes unlimited hosting and support, allowing you to save time, evolve your accounting solution at the pace of your business, and easily collaborate with your team wherever you are. With Odoo Accounting, you can say goodbye to financial headaches and hello to smooth business management. So check them out today using the link in the description below. You see, in December of 2024, a horrifying story made its way onto the news. While shopping in a convenience store in the Bronx, a mother was grabbed by a young man who didn't seem to care what he had to do to protect himself. He spun her around just as bullets whizzed through the storefront, using her as a human shield. The woman was then hit in the stomach while her 12-year-old daughter was shot in the leg, but miraculously, everyone who was shot survived the attack.
6 people shot in the Bronx, including a mother, used as a shield by one of the men getting targeted.
Brazen and heartless attack by 2 shooters that opened fire in the middle of the street and into a crowded convenience store, striking 6 people.
A 12-year-old girl shot in the leg. Police say her 40-year-old mother was shot in the abdomen when 2 people the shooters were aiming for used her as a shield.
But the attack had seemingly come out of nowhere. There was no reason behind this, nor for the man's behavior. No prior warning, just a sudden burst of bullets that almost cost a young girl's life, as well as her mother's. But as it turns out, shortly before the shootout, the Redditor Aromatic Candle posted on Bronxganistan. The subreddit was dedicated to gang culture in the Bronx, and that day, Aromatic Candle decided it was his time to shine. He posted a photo on the subreddit with the caption, "I should boom one of these 1300 clowns, right?" In the photo was a group of young men minding their business in front of a convenience store. They weren't disturbing the peace, just existing in a space completely unaware that somebody was plotting their demise across the road. And worse yet, all of their day was about to be ruined just for 10 upvotes. No one believed Aromatic Candle would act on this threat. Some members of the subreddit called it the corniest post of 2024, while others just poked fun at him. So likely taking this to heart and trying to prove his own insecurities, the person behind Aromatic Candle was all too happy to prove otherwise. As soon as his post hit just 10 upvotes, he opened fire. Most people, including a moderator, didn't believe Aromatic Candle's claims. But shortly after he'd opened fire, the mod logged the thread, called his post a lie and a fantasy, and iterated that the subreddit didn't condone violence. But unfortunately, his claim was all too real, and he had 6 victims to prove it. In response, Reddit decided to ban Bronxganistan and suspended Aromatic Candle's account. But what makes this whole thing worse is that it doesn't seem like those responsible for the shooting have been caught, nor the man that used the mother and child as a human shield. On the 12th of March 2006, the account Maxwell Hill joined Reddit. Almost immediately, the person behind the account posted something daily, mostly to subreddits like Our Politics, Our Technology, and Our World News. They were so involved in the subreddits that they eventually became a moderator in all 3, meaning they now had control over the flow of the main information on Reddit. They could decide what to delete and what would be successful. Over the next few years, they became so successful on Reddit that they were one of the first accounts to receive 1 million karma. Now, most of what they posted was relatively normal. As expected, it mainly focused on technology and politics. However, like most Redditors, Maxwell Hill liked bringing up controversial topics. However, in their case, said topics related to children, specifically child exploitation laws. In 2 particularly memorable moments, Maxwell Hill actually called for re-legislation of child P. Their argument? Overzealous child protection laws might get people with good intentions unfairly arrested. Yes, you heard that correctly. That's definitely not suspicious at all. Absolutely no need for concern. But unfortunately, this dark obsession wasn't the only dodgy thing about this user. Apparently, when Reddit was first getting off the ground, Maxwell Hill was one of the first accounts that helped populate it. So not only did this account more than likely belong to a predator, but they were also instrumental in turning Reddit into what it is today, being one of the biggest moderators on the entire site, which really isn't a great look for Reddit. Now, Maxwell Hill is creepy enough as it is, but things got even creepier in June 2020 following Ghislaine Maxwell's arrest, the side partner to Mr. Jeffrey. She was then charged with enticement of minors and sex trafficking of underage girls. She also apparently lied under oath about Mr. Jeffrey's abuse of underage people and is facing 2 charges. Now, what Redditors found particularly interesting was that Maxwell's arrest coincided with the sudden silence of Maxwell Hill. Suspicious, people started digging through the account, making connections they hadn't seen before. Given her history with Mr. Jeffrey, the most damning evidence for Maxwell being the person behind Maxwell Hill was all of these weird posts they'd made previously about child P. Even more interesting was the fact that someone started scrubbing the entire account of all of these references. But fortunately for us, the internet is forever, and when a group of people come together to expose celebrities, they will always leave absolutely no stone unturned. People then started making lists of every creepy article or conversation Maxwell Hill had had while still active. However, that wasn't all that linked the 2. Some Redditors noticed that Maxwell's posting was often affected by events in Maxwell's life. The most interesting of these was the gap that occurred after her mother's death. Maxwell and whoever was behind the account also shared the same birthday. There's also the small matter of the username literally being Maxwell Hill. But maybe it's just a coincidence that this also happens to be her surname combined with the name of her family estate. But even if Ghislaine Maxwell and Maxwell Hill may be the same person, what's the big deal? Well, given how heavily involved the account was in so many spheres of Reddit, and how much power these senior mods really have on the site, this is a huge deal, as it could mean that for the better part of a decade, Ghislaine Maxwell had been responsible for shaping internet culture on Reddit. And if that's not a reason to be concerned, I don't know what is. But Reddit does seem to be a place for absolutely crazy people. Though sometimes they're not the ones on Reddit, they're just the ones featured in a Redditor's story. Like one such person who had quite an impact on Throwaway Glitterbomb and her family. On the 25th of August 2021, Throwaway Glitterbomb made a post titled Crazy Beauty Queen Stalker. It was her second post regarding the situation, where she would recount the story of her husband's ex, a beauty queen title holder of a well-known pageant. She called her charming and beautiful on the outside, but below the surface was something dark and twisted. It was her terrible treatment of people, which is why the Redditor's husband left her in the first place. But unfortunately for Throwaway Glitterbomb and her family, the woman wasn't planning on going anywhere anytime soon. She would call constantly, begging her husband for more money. She also threatened to file a false report of abuse if he didn't give her said money. Both the husband and wife were terrified of her, neither sure how far this woman was willing to go. According to the Redditor, the beauty queen also went out of her way to intimidate her. Whenever they encountered each other in public, she threw demeaning insults her way and just be an all-around unpleasant person. After a few years of harassment, the Redditor and her husband had had enough, as he would order 3 cease and desist letters, all of which his ex completely ignored. Thoroughly angered by this, and the fact that her ex wouldn't give her more attention, this beauty queen decided to try a different tactic, bad-mouthing him on social media, because insulting a man and tormenting his family is apparently the way to his heart. She would go completely out of her way to try and ruin his reputation and take a few jabs at his wife for good measure. The couple eventually went to the police and she was charged with 2 counts of harassment. According to the Redditor, she spent her court appearance glaring at the couple, whispering in her lawyer's ear and laughing. She was then issued a restraining order, but unfortunately, according to Throwaway Glitterbomb, this only made everything so much worse. The woman then created fake social media accounts, all in the name of harassing the Redditor and her husband. She then used the accounts to call them terrible things, and posted increasingly unflattering photoshopped images of the couple. Apparently, she also started threatening their children too. Again, they called the police, but they could do nothing about the situation. So, the family became terrified, unable to live life because they didn't know what she would do next. This harassment then quickly turned from social media to directly calling the family. According to the Redditor, she would drop an insult and then just hang up. Once she chanted over the phone, and shortly after, she posted photos of a pentagram and candles. Apparently, she then posted to her fake Twitter account 16,000 times over 3 months, which is nothing short of absolutely insane. When the police finally acted, she was charged with 2 more accounts of criminal harassment. Furthermore, according to the Post, the judge ordered a social media ban. And while the Redditor claims that things have calmed down significantly, she's still very much on the edge, as she can't do stuff around her house without feeling like she's always being watched. As it turns out, shortly after she made her post, the Toronto Sun would publish an article granting vague details about everything that had happened between the Redditor and her ex-husband's girlfriend. And it turned out this ex was none other than the former Miss Canada. Based on the details shared in the Reddit post, specifically about her height, there was no way it wasn't the same person. And unfortunately for Throwaway Glitterbomb, the case is still actually ongoing. And it turned out, her husband wasn't the only person she threatened to accuse of abuse, as several men hadn't managed to dodge the bullet her husband had. Throwaway Glitterbomb ended her story with a translated quote from one of the beauty queen's posts: "Violent women and the cruelest never answer questions. They like to continue the misunderstanding indefinitely. So I see to contact people only in order to torment them. My cruelty is my last attachment to the world and my last chick." These seem to be words of a very disturbed woman. And while the Toronto Sun did cover the incident, confirming that this did in fact happen, there hasn't been much of an update. However, in August 2024, Throwaway Glitterbomb made another post, as she recapped the situation and emphasized that the court process was long. There have been a few instances in a virtual courtroom, but nothing terrifying. Her last paragraph read, "Our lives have moved on, and I'm happy to report that no news is good news." Not the most dramatic ending to a story like this, but still a disturbing story nonetheless, showing that Reddit is just filled with the weirdest people, and some of the most horrific stories you can imagine.